Please, don't leave me here." The cry came through the rain like it had hands, grabbing Jamal Carter right in the chest, and he felt it before he even saw her. He was driving home from Riverside, Georgia, after a long day of carpentry, with sawdust still stuck to his sleeves and a fast food bag cooling on the passenger seat for his little girl. October storms were common, but this one was mean, pushing water sideways across the road and turning every streetlight into a blurry halo. Jamal had one thought in his head: get home to Nia before her bedtime story, because being a single dad meant promises mattered more than sleep. And then his headlights swept over the old bus stop near the empty lot, the one people joked was just for ghosts, and he saw a small shape on the bench, hunched and shaking. A girl, alone, soaked, her hands tight around a white cane like it was the last solid thing in the world, while cars flew past her, spraying water, and nobody slowed down. Jamal's foot hovered over the gas, because he was tired, and bills were piled on his kitchen counter, and trouble always seemed to cost extra. But the girl's voice cracked again, and Jamal heard fear, not drama. And his hands turned the wheel before his brain finished arguing. His truck rolled onto the shoulder, wipers fighting hard, and he whispered, "Lord, please let this be the right thing." And he didn't know it yet, but this night would become the story people later summed up as, "See black single dad sees a poor blind girl abandoned at the bus stop." The truth left him stunned. He opened the door, and cold air slapped him. The girl's sobs stopped for a beat, like she could hear hope coming, and Jamal took one step toward her. At once, he walked up slow, hands open, and said, "Hey, I'm not a cop, and I'm not here to yell over the rain." Then added, "I'm Jamal. Are you hurt?" As the girl jerked, turned her face toward his voice, and he saw a soaked black cloth tied over her eyes. "Please," she whispered, "the bus is coming." He said it would, and her teeth hit each other like tiny drum beats, while Jamal checked the road and saw cars rushed past, throwing water like waves. He told her, "This stop doesn't run at night. You can't stay out here." But she shook her head. Her fingers crushed the handle of her white cane, and she said, "I can't go back." And those 4 words sounded older than her small body. Jamal swallowed, kept his voice soft, and asked, "What's your name?" And she answered, after a long, shaky breath, "Lila Brooks." He held out his jacket, but he didn't push it. He let her touch his sleeve first, like she needed to feel the truth, and he said, "I've got a kid at home, a little girl. If you come with me, you'll be warm and safe, and you can call anyone you trust." Lila paused so long Jamal thought she might bolt into the rain, but then her shoulders dropped, like she had run out of strength. She nodded once, and Jamal guided her hand to the truck door, talked her through the step up, then cranked the heat until the windows fogged. As he drove, Lila kept whispering, "He promised," again and again, like the promise was a thin string and she was hanging over a dark drop, and at a red light she asked, "Am I in trouble?" And Jamal said, "No, ma'am, not with me." Then he gripped the wheel and hoped he could keep that promise for you. Jamal's small house, on Pine Terrace, looked like a candle in the storm, porch light glowing and warm air pushing against the front door when he opened it, and his 8-year-old daughter Naya was supposed to be asleep, but she appeared at the stairs in her purple pajamas, rubbing her eyes like she'd been waiting. Behind her stood Jamal's cousin, Reggie Lane, who had been watching her while Jamal worked late, his face changing fast when he saw the dripping stranger, and Reggie asked, "Man, what happened?" Jamal kept his voice low and said, "Found her at the old bus stop. She's blind. She needs warmth first, questions later." While Nia stepped down one stair at a time and asked the simplest thing, "Are you cold?" Lila's chin trembled and she nodded, and Jamal felt his throat tighten because kids could spot pain faster than adults. So he guided Lila to the couch and told her where everything was, describing the coffee table, the lamp, the hallway, so she wouldn't feel trapped. Reggie brought towels and an old hoodie, and Jamal found sweats in a drawer, apologizing that they were big, and Lila whispered, "Thank you," like she didn't believe help could be real. While she showered, Jamal checked her small backpack and found no phone, no wallet, just a plastic bus card with the corner ripped and a tiny voice recorder taped inside a sock, and his skin went cold. When Lila came back out, hair wet and shoulders slumped, Naya offered her a cup of hot cocoa with both hands, and Lila held it close and said, "I'm sorry, I'm here," and Jamal answered, "Don't be sorry for surviving." Outside, thunder rolled, and Jamal wondered who would come looking, and what they would do when they found her. Then Reggie locked the door, and Jamal pocketed the recorder, quietly. By morning, the rain was lighter, but the clouds still hung low over Riverside like a warning, and Jamal made pancakes, while Nia sat close to Lila, at the table, talking in her quick, bright way, so Lila could map the room by sound. When Reggie left for work, Jamal placed the tiny recorder on the table, and said, "I found this in your bag. I need to know if someone is looking for you." And Lila went still, both hands around her mug, then whispered, "Don't play it. It's why they left me." Jamal's stomach turned and he asked, "Who left you?" And Lila swallowed hard and said, "Brightway Youth Home. They act like they help kids, but they only love the money." She told him she'd been blind since a sickness at 10, and that listening was how she survived. And she said 2 nights ago she heard the home's director, Mrs. Sloan, in the office with a man who snapped his fingers when she paused, like she was a slow waiter. Lila knew his voice from town meetings on the radio, Colin Hargrove, the rich builder by the river, and she said, "They talked about dumping waste and paying off an inspector." Then Mrs. Sloan said, "The blind one hears too much, and they took my phone." Lila recorded anyway, then got shoved into a car and dropped at the bus stop with a cane and a lie. And Jamal's breath caught, because Hargrove wasn't a stranger. Jamal had built cabinets for him last month, and the man had smiled like a friendly uncle. Nia leaned forward, face tight, and asked, "So they tried to erase you just for hearing the truth?" Outside, tires hissed on wet pavement. Jamal looked through the blinds and saw a dark SUV slowing, then rolling on, and he tucked the recorder into his sock. An hour later, a hard knock hit the door. 3 sharp beats that did not sound like a neighbor, and Reggie was gone, so Jamal signaled Nia with a look, and she grabbed Lila's hand and led her to the hall closet, silent as a mouse. Jamal opened the door just a crack and saw 2 men under one big umbrella, both wearing clean boots and blank faces, and the taller one said, "Morning," while his eyes slid past Jamal's shoulder like they were already inside. Then he added, "We're looking for a runaway from Brightway." Jamal kept his smile thin and said, "Don't know anything about that," and the shorter man nodded toward the living room and said, "Mind if we look? Just doing our job." Jamal's pulse jumped, but his voice stayed steady as he asked, "You got a warrant?" And the taller man's mouth twitched before he said, "Sir, don't make this harder. The girl is sick. She needs to come back." Jamal heard a muffled breath from the closet and pictured Lila alone on that bench. Then he felt something in him lock into place, and he said, "She's not here. If you're worried, call the police." The men stared for a long second. The shorter one stepped closer, close enough that Jamal smelled mint gum, and he said softly, "We will, and we'll remember you." Then they left, but Jamal knew the threat stayed. He shut the door, locked it, and called Officer Alina Ruiz, his old classmate, and he said, "Alina, I've got a blind kid in my house, and someone just tried to take her." Alina didn't laugh or doubt him. She said, "Stay calm, Jamal. Do not hand her over." Then her tone changed, and she said, "Bring her and that recorder to the station, back entrance, and if you see that SUV again, call me and keep driving. Right now, okay?" Jamal packed fast, like the house was on fire, and he told Naya to put on sneakers and a raincoat, and he asked Lila if she could walk with her cane to the truck without falling. Lila's voice shook, but she said, "Tell me where the steps are, and I can do it." And Jamal talked her through each move, one hand hovering near her elbow, and he felt proud of her courage, even while fear clawed at him. They pulled out of the driveway, and the street looked normal. Wet lawns and dripping trees, but Jamal's nerves made every parked car seem alive, and at the first stop sign he saw the dark SUV from earlier, idling 2 houses back, like it belonged there. Naya whispered, "Daddy, that's them," and Jamal forced his face to stay calm so she wouldn't panic. Then he drove past the turn to the police station on purpose and headed toward the Riverside Fire Station, the busiest place he could think of. The SUV followed. Jamal called Alina on speaker, and she said, "Good choice. Keep moving. I'm on my way." But the SUV tried to pull beside them at a light, and the taller man leaned out, smiling like a bully at recess. Jamal kept both hands on the wheel and stared forward, counting his breaths, and when the light changed, he turned sharp into the fire station lot, tires splashing, and parked under the bright bay doors where firefighters were washing a truck. People looked up. The SUV rolled past slow and kept going like it suddenly remembered it had manners, and Alina arrived 2 minutes later, soaked but steady, and she guided them inside a small office. Jamal handed her the recorder, and Leela said, "Please don't let them send me back." And Alina answered, "Not a chance." Alina listened to the recording with her jaw tight, then called an estate investigator who happened to be in the next county for a river complaint, and the voices on the tape were clear, and Jamal felt sick recognizing Hargrove's smooth tone, talking about quiet payments and moving the blind girl out of the way. Alina took Leela's statement gently, letting her hold Nia's hand so she could feel steady, and she promised Lila a real advocate and a safe place. But power doesn't like being caught, and by late afternoon, Hargrove himself walked into the station like he owned the air, suit dry, hair perfect, a smile that never reached his eyes. He pointed at Jamal and said loudly, "That's the man." He kidnapped a ward of the state, and Jamal stood up so fast his chair scraped as he said, "I didn't kidnap anybody. I found her abandoned in the rain." Hargrove's eyes slid to Leela, and his smile sharpened as he said, "Leela, sweetheart." "You're confused," voice coated in fake kindness, and then he added, "Come with me, and we'll get you back where you belong." Leela lifted her chin toward his voice. Her hands shook, but her words came out strong when she said, "You left me to die. I heard you," and the room went still. Hargrove's face twitched for half a second. Then he laughed and said, "She's blind. She hears things wrong." But Alina stepped between them and said, "She hears just fine," and she held up the recorder like a badge. The state investigator played the tape out loud at full volume, and Hargrove's own words filled the station. Ugly and real, and Hargrove lunged for it, but 2 officers grabbed his arms, and Jamal watched the rich man's smile finally break. Naya whispered, "We got you, Leela, today." Riverside woke up to the news within days. The blind girl from the bus stop had been left there on purpose, and the recorder gave Alina enough to bring in the state. And soon Brightway Youth Home was shut down while Mrs. Sloan faced charges. Investigators searched the river and found proof of dumping, and Colin Hargrove's world started to fall apart in public, right where he hated to look weak, while Jamal kept working, kept feeding Nia, kept living one day at a time, but he no longer felt like a man who had to swallow every fear. Lila was placed with a foster family first, because the county had rules. Yet she called Jamal each evening, just to hear him say, "You're safe," and Nia drew pictures and described them like stories, making Lila smile, even on hard nights. One afternoon, Alina sat at Jamal's kitchen table and said, "You can apply to be her guardian," and Jamal looked at the small life he had built for 2, and he felt scared of breaking it, but he felt more scared of sending Leela back into darkness alone. Leela said, I don't want to be a file. I want to be family. And Nia nodded like she had been waiting to hear it. So Jamal signed the papers, hands shaking. And when the judge approved it later, Leela cried so quietly Jamal almost missed it. In spring, the three of them walked past that old bus stop, and Jamal held Nia's hand, while Nia held Lila's elbow, and the wind smelled for once. When people asked why he stopped that night, he said, "See, black single dad sees a poor blind girl abandoned at the bus stop." The truth left him stunned. And he meant this: when you choose kindness in the rain, you become someone's shelter.